In 2011, Marvel Studios released Thor, which saw Chris Hemsworth bleach his eyebrows and smash coffee cups in a desert for 2 hours. But believe it or not, this wasn't the only Thor movie which came out that year, because just a couple of weeks after Thor premiered, Marvel followed it up with the near-forgotten straight-to-video feature film Thor, Tales of Asgard. But here's the surprising part. It's actually kinda good.
Bantu? You think less of my skill than I realized.
Let's rewind for a second. Cast your minds back to 2004. Lots of things happened in 2004. Mark Zuckerberg launched the Facebook. There was a coup in Haiti. The tallest bridge in the world was opened in France. But also, Lionsgate Entertainment struck a deal with Marvel to produce a number of direct-to-video animated movies, to be known as Marvel Animated Features. These kicked off 2 years later with Ultimate Avengers, followed a few months later by Ultimate Avengers 2, Rise of the Panther. 6 other projects followed over the next half-decade, focused on various different characters and of various levels of quality. And the last of these was a little picture named Thor, Tales of Asgard. This is a Thor movie, but not as we know them today. There's no Earth, Mjolnir's only included as a background Easter egg, Loki's pretty unambiguously a hero, and oh yeah, the God of Thunder is a teenager. But this isn't some juvenile reboot of the typical status quo, only teenified, a la Iron Man Armored Adventures, X-Men Evolution, or I guess Gotham. It could very easily have been a traditional Thor story but de-aged. A story about a teenage Asgardian prince infiltrating a Midgardian high school, perhaps under the pseudonym Donald Blake, in order to expose the evil principal Loki for some nefarious scheme, all the while falling in love with a cheerleader named Jane Foster. Something like that would have been all too easy to make, but instead this foregoes a good deal of classic Thor lore in order to go back in time and tell a coming-of-age story that feels less Marvel and more mythological. So Loki's still a prince of Asgard, there's never the adoption reveal, he never betrays Thor, and our protagonist never goes through that familiar banishment, never even picks up his famous mallet. There's fun little moments referencing these future events, but the focus remains on an original story about the princes of Asgard sneaking into Jotunheim on a quest to prove their maturity. Naturally, things go south, betrayals and plot twists occur, and a large-scale war nearly breaks out as a result of this little adventure. But this never really feels like a superhero movie, more like a Norse-flavored fantasy film, a distant 2D cousin to something like How to Train Your Dragon. And honestly, it's a lot of fun. The animation's not like the best ever, but the film's visuals do have character. The voice acting's not spectacular, but it has a certain charm to it, and I do buy into some of these performances. Particularly Matthew Wolfe as a young, headstrong Thor, and Tara Strong as a bold and gutsy Sif. A Sif who, perhaps for the first and last time in a Thor movie, gets to be an actual character, instead of a background Xena photocopy. No disrespect to Jamie Alexander, she's great, but it's a little sad that Sif gets more characterization in a 70-minute direct-to-video feature than she did across her entire MCU tenure. I also just love the fact that in this world, Fenrir is just some guy.
Lift your steins for a toast, lads, to frigid worlds and lost swords.
You took my ale!
That's the same character as this giant good boy from Ragnarok, the guy who's prophesized to one day kill Odin. And he's just some dude roughhousing in a bar. No deep analysis here, I just think that's funny. Of course, this film's no masterpiece. I'm not sure I'm fully on board with the idea that the Valkyries are all Valkyries because they're trying to get over men who hurt them. That idea sets up a few solid gags in the movie, but I'm sure I don't have to explain why conceptually it's not great. It's also wild to me that the film sets up Loki's magical training really early on, but never really pays it off. Presumably an early draft of the script saw Loki use this water sorcery at a critical point in the narrative to defeat or distract a foe, but if that ever was the case, it must have been lost in a rewrite. But while aspects like this hold Thor Tales of Asgard back from real greatness, it's still a pretty solid flick. I can tell you right now that if I'd have seen this film when I was like 7 to 11ish, I'd have really liked it. And while it's clearly made primarily for a younger audience, there are genuinely interesting aspects at play here. Like the way this Tale of Asgard is itself based partly around our protagonists chasing old tales themselves, following old stories about Surtur's defeat. This points to a concern within the film about the trustworthiness of narratives, especially narratives of valor and manhood. For instance, nearer the film's start, we see Thor struggling to confront the fact that his publicized training fights are staged, that this idea of his might and his skill is a false one. To combat this, he stows away with the Warriors 3, known for their daring adventures in Jotunheim, but it turns out that's a false narrative too. They're just going to the pub to get on the lash. Later on, the big heel turn comes as the Dark Elf Algrim rewrites the official narrative of Odin's war on Surtur, framing it instead as the story of his people's oppression. While it's not explored with particular depth, the recurring idea here is that tales, stories, narratives are never as simple and straightforward as they may appear, that even culturally accepted ones may hide suppressed nuances or silenced voices behind normative viewpoints. And I think that's a good idea to explore, especially in a film whose plot revolves around a quest, a cultural tradition to prove a boy's manhood. Implicitly, the reliability of such a tradition and the values it enshrines is questioned. When victory is reached by our protagonists, it's a victory over self-deception and over blind faith in these narratives. And I think that's cool. It's cool that this movie explores ideas like this, and it's cool that it does so in a fun, well-designed fantasy setting that doesn't really feel like a standard Marvel world. But what's less cool is that this was the last chance the people over at Marvel Animation had to do something like this. Because Thor Tales of Asgard was the last Marvel animated feature, the 8th and final film, despite that Lionsgate deal being for up to 10 pictures. Now it's very possible that the end of these Marvel animated features was due simply to declining sales, and the figures do support that to a degree. But the collapse of this straight-to-video arm coincided with a wider shift in Marvel Animation. Almost precisely a year before Tales of Asgard released, Marvel Animation confirmed the cancellation of Wolverine and the X-Men, and within a year or so of this final movie's release, the announcements were made for Ultimate Spider-Man and Avengers Assemble, announcements which doubled as confirmation that Spectacular Spider-Man and Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes were both dead in the water. Following these announcements, Marvel Animation became primarily focused on TV shows like those mentioned above, which told stories set in more recognizable, more MCU-like settings, starring characters a great deal more alike to their big screen counterparts than had been seen in the previous wave of animated properties, projects like Thor Tales of Asgard, or EMH, or the other animated features. This shift in direction towards new continuities, new shows, and brand cohesion stung even more though, because in the last few years, Marvel Animation had increasingly been tying all its projects together. I've talked about all this before in greater detail, check out the video on screen now for more info, but this so-called Yostverse was cut down just as it was coming together. And here's the thing, Tales of Asgard supposedly was part of this shared universe. The Thor we see in Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the Thor I made a video on a few days ago, that's this guy. Not everything lines up perfectly, most notably the design of Asgard, but officially these are both set in Earth 8096, the Yostverse. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but let's forget about it just for a second. Honestly, that's of secondary importance here. The real shame about the end of these Marvel animated features isn't that it coincided with the death of the Yostverse. It's that it meant no more projects like Tales of Asgard. Fun, independent and charming stories which take these established properties in less traveled directions. After the death of these features and the Yostverse, we had a slate of shows which stuck ever closer to the MCU in terms of tone and characterization, and now we don't even have those. It seems Marvel's opening another animation branch, but under the umbrella of Marvel Studios, the MCU people. And maybe there's room there for more unique, different stuff, but given the projects they've announced so far, it's not looking too likely. But we might be in a position to change that. This video, you see, is my second and final entry into the collaborative playlist I'm running, Earth's Mightiest Playlist. You should check it out, there's some really cool entries. But the point of this playlist is to promote the hashtag Save the Yostverse trend event, happening tomorrow at 12 PM UTC. If you're watching this video as it goes live or the day after, there's still time to join in. All you have to do is tweet with this hashtag and you'll be helping to show Marvel Studios that there's still an audience for animated content content like these shows, like these animated features, which take things in different directions. And that's that. Thanks for watching. If you're curious about Tales of Asgard yourself, I believe it's on Amazon Prime in many regions, so maybe give it a look. But I hope you enjoyed this video. And before I go, I'll say the customary thank you to all my patrons on screen now, particularly Kevin Douglas and Ian Fifield.